Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on Wurundjeri country and pay my respects to elders and traditional knowledge holders. It is my privilege to introduce today's speaker, Zoë Amanda Wilson. Zoë is going to tell you about her life, so I won't try to do that, but I will say it's been a privilege to work with her over the past few years, partly because she has such amazing enthusiasm and passion about science. So I believe physicists have a concept called gravimetric energy density. And so this is measured in terms of energy per gram. I think it's quite possible. Zoë has a higher gravimetric energy density than anybody else in Melbourne. So with that, over to you, Zoë.
That's the nicest compliment I've ever received in my life. Hello, welcome to my story. I have been putting this together while I've been on field work over the last week, and yesterday I was in my mum's house, like pulling out all the photos and taking photos of old photos and stuff. So I have not practiced this. I don't know how long it will be. I don't know what I'm going to say, but here we go. There are pictures. I'll talk you through stuff, and yeah, if anything sounds cool or interesting, ask questions, do whatever. Here we go. This is my life. It may be cohesive. It may not. I'd say, I'm going to guess not. So here's me when I was a little bubba. So I was born in Canberra in 1987, in the middle of a snowstorm in October. People still talk about this snowstorm. It does not snow in Canberra. Certainly doesn't snow in Canberra in the middle of spring. That was the snowstorm that I was born in. So I was predestined for amazing things. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and the oldest brother and sister were teenagers when me and the others were born. So this is my little nuclear family, Amy, Tim, and me. I'm the middle child, which we probably all could have guessed just from my the way that I am. That's my biggest sister over there. That's one of the only pictures you will see of my mum this whole time. There are not many pictures of my mum because she takes all the pictures, and I was like, I need a picture of her. So there she is, looking very beautiful and glamorous and 80s. Yeah, what do I say about my childhood? It was great. I was very, very happy little kid. I had the best family. My brother and sister are just a tiny bit older and younger than me, like less than a year and a half, 481 days exactly. Both age gaps are exactly the same, which, yeah, cool, right? Like my parents just perfectly did that. And I think that maybe somewhat fueled my love of data and counting things and knowing stuff about stuff. Yeah, so we grew up in Canberra. My other brother and sister lived in Queensland, but we'd see them all the time. Nikki was in the Navy. She was the first female helicopter pilot in the Navy, so she was like super cool. And my brother is a civil engineer. He's pretty cool as well. My other brother and sister they were babies then, but now they're not anymore. Amy's a teacher and Tim's a aeronautical engineer in the Air Force. And they all have kids now. It's so good. Heaps of kids in my life. They're the best. This is all my school. Well, not all my school pictures. Some are missing, but this is the transition of Zoë from babyhood to year 12. Pretty goofy little faces there a bit. So there's this great story that my mum likes to tell from probably when I was this age. And I'm going to start with that because I feel like it sets the scene for the rest of my life. So mum came and dropped me off at preschool one day, and there was a craft table set up, and they'd given us these just A4 sheets of paper with 3 circles on them that were meant to be a snowman. And then there was just stuff on the table, bits of cotton wool and stuff that were meant to glue on the snowman and create a snowman. That was the activity for the day. When she came back and picked me up in the evening, there was all the little artworks up on display on the wall, and there were 29 pretty much identical snowmen and 1 single zebra. And she said it was pretty easy to pick which one was mine. And I think at that stage, she was like, I'm not sure whether to be like worried or not yet. And she hasn't decided that still yet. But yeah, I think that set the scene for the way that I've generally approached my life. I think other people kind of see what they're meant to see, and I see what's really there, the essence of the 3 circles on the page, and sometimes that is a zebra. So a really, really big massive, important part of my life when I was little was these big road trips that we went on. The first one was in 1997. You're going to see some really good fashion in these pictures. You can barely even see me. I'm that little black blob in the middle with my little red hat. But the 5 of us piled into that Holden Commodore with the Jayco Swan on the back. That was one of the ones that you wind up and the roof pops up and then the little beds pop out the ends. Pretty tiny for 3 little kiddos. I turned 10 on that trip. Amy turned 11 and Tim was 9. So yeah, really, really nice age to be drinking in information and just being in the world. And we were big enough also to like go on big hikes and really, really do stuff and really remember stuff. I remember a great deal about these trips. Here's just a photo dump, so you can look at those photos while I talk about it. So the first big trip was, we did a whole lap of Australia, basically. We did like down here in Canberra, went up there, around there, down to Alice Springs, around the edge of Western Australia and just back. That was the first one. The second one was a small one in the outback. The third one was 2 months up to Cape York and back. And then there was another one just during Victoria, just filling in some gaps. So we spent like so many months on the road over those years, just in the car, driving all day, and then just like being little ferals out in the world. And it was so glorious. I was an absolutely ravenously curious child. I wanted to just know everything about everything all the time. Like, I just wanted to know about animals. I wanted to know about history. I wanted to know about the world. Whenever we met an adult, I would immediately latch onto them and just be like, tell me everything you know about everything, and just freak everyone out. I wanted to know stories about the stars and stories about Aboriginal history. And I wanted to know what every bird was called and what every animal was called and every bug and every flower. And this was just the absolute perfect just situation for me to be in, to feed my curiosity and show me how big the world is. And I was never scared of anything. And I just really appreciated the freedom that I was afforded on this trip. When we rolled up in a town, generally we'd set up camp and then I'd be like, can I just go exploring? Mum and Dad would be like, yeah, hell yeah, be back before it's dark, make sure we vaguely know-ish where you are. And I'd just go and explore and make friends. And yeah, what's some cool bits? I'm trying to get into a coconut with a rubber mallet there, fairly unsuccessfully. That's Uluru there in the middle. I'm very sorry to say we climbed Uluru. It was 1997. That's what we were doing. There's also, when you walk around Uluru, if you've done it before, there's all this art kind of that you sort of on a path and then you like go in off the path and see the art and then come out. And there are often signs saying, this is for women only, or this is for men only, and you're just expected to respect that. And we just kind of didn't, and it just kind of sucked. And even at the time, I remember just thinking like, this is not right. This is not for us, and we shouldn't be doing this. And I trusted my parents and I went with what they said, but I think it just there was still something in me that I was like, I don't think we should be doing this. And I'm glad that I had that and that I kept that and I didn't just internalize the things that I was being told. That was my little brother on a camel with my dad in Alice Springs. That's Almost Pound. I remember that moment because I remember looking down at that. It was in the desert in the Northern Territory. And I remember just being like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life, and trying so hard to just drink it in with my eyeballs and keep it inside my brain for as long as I could. And I still remember just that feeling of just overwhelming beauty over me. This slide is just to prove to you all that I have always loved animals and birds. Like this has been a long-term thing. Birds is not a new thing. This is my life. This is me having the best time. That's me cuddling a quokka. Best moment of my life. That photo, the expanded version of it, has my sister in the background in the most 90s outfit in the world. And I'm kind of sorry I had to cut it down because it's the best. But there we are. Yes.
Did you do this all in the summers, the road tripping, or did you like your parents take you out of school for something?
Yeah, no, we were completely out of school. So yeah, that one was 6 months. So I missed like a good chunk of grade 4. So we made sure that that's a picture of that. We'd do school we'd do a version of school. Our teachers had given us bits and pieces of stuff to do. We kind of didn't really, and we were young enough that it didn't matter that much. And we were all like really advanced kids. We could read really early. We could do maths and whatever. So we kept up with maths, and we kept up with like handwriting and stuff. But mostly my parents just made sure we were learning about our country and where we came from and what we were doing. And I definitely learned more in that 6 months than I learned anywhere at school. Just the big thing was keeping up with maths, really, to make sure that we didn't have a huge amount of catching up to do. But yeah, we definitely were never behind. Maybe a little bit socially. It was a bit weird coming back and knowing that I'd done something so special and so significant, and that I couldn't really talk to other kids about it in a real way. Like, I remember trying to describe to other little 10-year-olds what the blue of the sky looks like in the Northern Territory. And that's just, it's too much for 10-year-olds. It made me feel a little disconnected from the other kids, but not in a big way and not in a bad way, but I just knew that I was a bit different from them now because of this really special thing. So this was the next big and important thing in my life. So I did scouts when I was a kid. I loved it. I did it, like, we basically did it because Dad wanted to be a scout leader. He's like, all right, Amy and Zoe, get in your scout uniforms, we're joining scouts. And this big thing that Scouts does, don't know if you know, is they do these shows called gang shows, and they have them all over the world in many, many cities. And so me and my sister did Canberra Gang Show. When I was 12, you had to be 12 to be in it. My brother started the following year, and we did it. We did the one in 2000, 2001, and 2002. That is me playing Cleopatra in my first year. A little bit cultural appropriation-y. Again, it was 2000. I'm sorry, I atoned for my sins. That's me there, my little scout uniform. That's my sister. We were in blue because we were Sea Scouts and everyone else was Land Scouts. That was a girl guide. Oh, and another girl guide there. And so these shows were like full scale musical productions. We sang, we danced, we wore costumes, we wore makeup, we did the whole lot of it. And the kids were 12 to 26 years old. Well, not all kids, but yeah, 12 to 26 years old. And we just worked together and put these shows on. And I remember Gang Show 2000, the first show, it went for about 2 weeks every night. And the first show, at the end of the show, we all take a bow and the whole audience applauded. And I stood on that stage and I went, why would anyone spend their life doing anything other than this right now? Trying to recreate this feeling that I'm feeling right now. This is it. This is it. At 12 years old, I was like, I know exactly what I'm doing. And I pretty much, from then on, pretty much walked in a straight line towards that for many, many years. And I still think of that sometimes. I still remember that feeling that really propelled me on through my childhood and teenage years and young adulthood. So yeah, Canberra Gang Show, what a brilliant and beautiful thing to exist. I agonized about whether or not to put in this slide, but I've done it, so we're going to talk about this. This is Jeremy. He was born when I was 12. He was my next door neighbor's baby. He was the first baby that I ever knew or had a relationship with, and I loved him so much. This little tiny little being, and I watched him kind of turn into a person. I was one of the first people he actually recognized and was excited to see, and he had a name. He couldn't say Zoe because that's too tricky for a baby, but he had a little name for me. And when he was on the weekend of his second birthday, I was at my gymnastics class and my dad came in early, and I was like, hell yeah, Dad's here early. He gets to see me do gymnastics. My parents never turned up to my training, so I was really excited about it. And he looked kind of sad. And I went over and I was like, hey, Dad, I'm about to do my full routine, so make sure you're watching. Are you okay? And he said, Jeremy's in hospital and they don't know if he's going to make it. And he didn't. And he was already dead. And yeah, I don't think about it much anymore, and I barely ever talk about it, but it was a very formative moment for me. I was 14. It was his second birthday, and it utterly broke me. Up until that moment, I was just a happy, secure child, the way that just any child in a good family, in a good situation, you know, had my hobbies, had my things, and was good at school, I had friends. But this just like absolutely took me apart in a way that I wouldn't survive it now, and I don't know how I did then. Afterwards, also, I injured myself pretty badly at gymnastics, and so I couldn't do gymnastics. And so that also sucked, just not having my physical things that I could do. And I felt guilty and upset about the way that my family could see me breaking and falling apart as well. And I was like, this happened to all of us. It just didn't happen to me, but I'm the one who needs this extra care and support, and it's not fair. My parents shouldn't have to do that either. And I think it's very, very much informed the way that I trust the world and trust the things that you should just be allowed to trust, like that babies will get to grow up, and that I don't know, the foundations of the world are somewhat solid. They're not. And that, yeah, really greatly informed the way that I went through my teenage years. And I think that it was just a tribute to my very, very strong community around me that I didn't completely go off the rails, and I managed to just go through, wake up the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day, and then just keep going. And yeah, that was a little depressing little turn that we took, but I feel like it was an important thing to talk about because it really did. It was a very, very formative thing for me. So not too long after that, we moved to Queensland, and that was always meant to happen. My parents were both Queenslanders, and they'd moved down to Canberra just for a couple of years and stayed for 17 years and had a bunch of kids and did all the things. And so we were always meant to go back, and finally we did. This is when, like, this is my teenage years. I'm starting to just look super goofy here. Here we go. So I kept performing. That was a performance of Grease. That's Rob Cooper. That was my first boyfriend. Yeah, he's there as well. That's my sister. That's my best friend, actually. We started getting really, really into music, me and my friends. And because it was still the thousands, there wasn't YouTube and stuff. So we were still doing the thing where you'd buy a CD and you'd swap it with your friends and you'd make a mixtape and you'd listen to your parents' records. And we started being allowed to go to shows. And so we'd go out and see. We went and saw Phil Emmanuel at the Nambour Civic Centre. Kicked ass. That was Woodford Folk Festival in the middle. That guy in the red shirt is Mal Webb. He was this artist who we were all like obsessed with, and we met him and we're like, oh my God, this is so cool. He's now like a close friend of mine, but at the time he was like a superstar to us. Yeah, high school. What else did I do? I was pretty good at school, like really good at school, and teachers always just thought that I was going to go on and study their subject at university. They're like, wow, you're so good at this. This is clearly the thing you're meant to do. And I was just like, I'm going to be an actor. And no one really took it seriously at all. And was just like, oh yeah, you can be an actor in your spare time. Like go and become literally anything else, please. That was my parents' attitude. That was all my teachers' attitudes. But there was this one teacher in my high school, Mr. Wilson. So I wasn't doing music at high school because in my first high school in Canberra, music was really, really boring. It was just like, today we're in the keyboard lab, put on your headphones, play a song. And there was just nothing that was attempting to make us care about music. But Mr. Wilson at my high school in Queensland kind of just identified me and found me and was like, you are a musician. What the hell are you doing not doing music? And I was like, well, I'm doing woodwork because music is boring. And he bullied me into joining music. So I did. And this school was really tiny. And the music program was really tiny. So in year 11 and 12, it was combined because there was about 7 kids in year 12 and then 15 kids or so in year 11 doing it. Yes.
What school was it?
St. John's in Nambour, up on the hill with the big rainforest. Oh, I love this school so much. I couldn't believe it when I moved from Canberra to the Sunshine Coast and I saw my school. This school had like a chunk of rainforest in the middle of it. And I was like, what the hell? This is amazing. There's rainforest at my school. And there was like the school and then this rainforest and then the Oval. And so if you wanted to go to the Oval at lunchtime, you had to like run through like a kilometer of rainforest and you had to run. So you got there in time to actually have time to play and then run back. And it was just the best. And I just thought it was so cool. And my school in Canberra had been giant and it was impossible to stand out or be noticed. And I am someone who needs to be noticed. I'm secure in that knowledge about myself by now. But yeah, in Canberra, I never felt special or felt like I was particularly, I guess every kid at that school probably felt like that. It was too big. There was no space for teachers to notice us. I won the Australian Westpac maths competition when I was in year 7, and they came and like did a big presentation school assembly thing to give me my prize. And that was like the one time that I was like, cool, wow, I'm somebody here. There's something about me that's not just part of everyone else. But at this little school, I feel like the principal knew every single kid's name and every kid's dog's name. Like it was just one of those schools where they wanted you to feel really included and loved and part of it. And yeah, I think my entire grade was about 120 kids. So maybe not even that. But yeah, really small and loving school. It was a Catholic school, which like I'm not Catholic, my family's not Catholic, but my parents are wankers. So they sent us to a private school. But just the attitude towards community and making people feel involved was really, really lovely there. I appreciated it at the time, but I appreciate it even more now. They wanted kids to feel special. So this music teacher scooped me up and was like, you're doing music. And I was like, cool, yeah, I'm going to be a music theatre actor. And he's like, yeah, hell yeah, you are. Cool. And I was like, oh, that's nice. And I don't think I would have needed that, but it felt really, really good just having one adult in my life that believed in my dreams. So I went and studied music theatre at the Central Queensland Conservatorium of Music. And it was a pretty small uni, pretty small course. It was certainly no like WAPA or NIDA, but I didn't get into those. So Central Queensland Conservatorium of Music it was. And we had a sort of a separate little, like the conservatorium was separate from the rest of the uni. And so there was a jazz program, contemporary program, a classical program, and then music theatre. But it was really little. We all knew each other. We were like this full family, and it was just the time of my life. It was wonderful. We put on these full-scale music theatre productions twice a year. So the uni term was 9 weeks long, and then the musical was 3 weeks long, and it was utterly intense because we had to still do just essays and exams, plus also one exam for ballet, one for tap, one for jazz, plus a written exam. Like it was a lot more exams than probably any other uni, and then all crammed into 9 weeks instead of 12. This is some of our shows that we did. I could do backflips then. So in every single show, we'd get like a visiting director and they'd be someone pretty big and cool. And they'd be like, oh, you can do backflips? Oh, you're going to be the backflipper. So I was like the backflipping monkey, the backflipping flapper, the backflipping like whatever. We did Cinderella. I was the backflipping pumpkin. It just, you manage to work in a backflip if you have a backflip available to you. So I got my Bachelor of Music Theatre in 2008. Then I moved to Melbourne. This is Melbourne Chapter 1, which I like to call yes and, which is an acting term, which means that you take the offer that someone gives you and then you extend it. Yes and. So I just moved to Melbourne by myself, no money, no nothing. I was just like, I'm going to just see what happens. And I just yes anded my way into a whole bunch of wonderful and incredible things. So on my very first day in Melbourne, I went out to see a show at the Evelyn or somewhere, and I met this dude with long blonde dreadlocks. He was a rapper, and we made friends. His name was Hugo. That's him. And the next day I was just walking around the city exploring, being like, what does this beautiful city have to offer me? And I ran into him and I was like, I know one person in this city and here he is. And he was like, I'm about to go and write a play with my friend. Do you want to come? And I was like, yes, I do. And so we went and we sat and we wrote this play. And then we performed it 3 days later at this little bar. And I was like, what the hell, Melbourne? This is so cool. This is everything I could have hoped for and nothing that I would have expected. So me and Hugo became awesome friends, and I became part of this really like flourishing underground bohemian kind of scene. I don't know if it still really exists, but I'm not in it anymore. But at the time it was glorious. This is part of that. We used to like just make music videos on trams in the middle of the night. And there was a big event called the Bohemian Masquerade Ball in Melbourne, and we put that on. It was super like just guerrilla, and I became known as the Swiss Army girl. I could just be asked to do anything and I could just do it. People would be like, well, the first one was like, do you know how to make a spaceship out of a shopping trolley? Someone asked me that as though that's a thing people know how to do. And I said, yes. And I did it. And then I was asked, do you know how to, oh no, do you have a cat costume that you could wear tonight in my show? And I was like, I can make one. So I spent the day making a cat costume and then appeared in the rap song When Pavlov's Dog Met Schrodinger's Cat. And I just kept getting myself into these situations by just saying yes to people. My friend, this is Charlie McGee, he was like, I'm making a music video. Do you want to be in it? And I was like, I'd love to. And then he messages all his friends who are in the video. And he's like, does anyone have like a sheep? We just need a sheep. And I was like, I can knit a sheep costume. And so I was the sheep. Yeah, and that was Hugo's band. So he had When Pavlov's Dog Met Schrodinger's Cat. I turned up just as his cat to sort of act out the song. And then this other girl, Ellen, was the dog. And eventually, like, we sort of would just come to his shows just to do that one song. And he's like, wait, you guys are both singers. Like, why don't I get you to sing on the choruses of some of my songs? And so our role in the band just got bigger and bigger, and we ended up just being in the band. And so I was just in a hip hop band, and we just toured around the east coast of Australia doing shows. And that's at Woodford Folk Festival. So I went from being this little scungy 17-year-old kid being like, this is the best festival ever, to playing on one of the main stages. And another thing, also through Hugo is a very formative person. So he started doing this video series with this guy called Giordano called Rap News, where they would take a big world event that people weren't really talking about or people didn't really understand, and they would make a rap video about it. And Giordano would do all the research. Hugo would make it rhyme and perform it. And in the third episode, I got a call and they're like, hey, Zoe, could you dress up in a bondage video and just like smack Hugo with a paddle in this Rap News video? And I was like, yes. So I did. And then I started doing sort of more and more stuff in Rap News. Whenever they needed a girl, I was the girl. That's me being a lady stormtrooper. Ellen's the other stormtrooper. And that went on for many years. It was like pretty popular, pretty cool on YouTube. No one was really doing anything like it. Then there was a falling out between Hugo and Giordano. That fell apart. But then Giordano kept the brand, and it's now become the Juice Media Honest Government ads. So that's sort of the evolution of that. And that originally wasn't going to have actors in it. It was just going to be like visuals and voiceovers. But he just decided it would be better having a presenter because people would like it more. So I got the call and I turned up for that. And so that's how that happened. So I feel like this is what you all actually care about. This is why we're all here. You want to hear about stunts. It's fine. Here we go. Okay, so not too long after I moved to Melbourne. So we'd done a very short part of the music theatre course that was a screen acting course. And I'd always thought that all I ever wanted to do was music theatre. I wanted to be on stage, singing, dancing, acting, 8 shows a week. And then we did this short little screen acting course, and it was so good. And it was, I just was a lot better at it, I thought, than theatre acting. And it felt better and it felt more truthful. And I was like, I think I actually want to do TV acting. And it was at the very end of the music theatre course. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I've changed my mind. And I moved to Melbourne, auditioned for a bunch of musicals. And I was like, I'm not good enough to be in musicals. I can't dance. And I'm not going to get main non-dancing roles because I'm not like famous. So I was like, that's okay. I'll get more into TV acting. So I started auditioning for stuff, and, you know, it's pretty slow. It's pretty difficult to get into it. Then I was like, what if I became a stunt performer? That sounds really, really fun. And then also it just, you know, diversifies what I can do. And then I'm on film sets more. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. So I called up a stunt agent and I said, how does someone become a stunt performer? I want to, and I don't know how. So she invited me around to her house, made me a cup of tea, and told me everything about the industry. And as it turns out, I had spent my childhood basically giving myself the perfect training ground to be a stunt performer. So between abseiling, gymnastics, sailing, and just a host of other things that I did, mostly through Scouts, just doing stuff that made me aware of my body and able to work with stuff. Yeah, I just had the training. So I went and did actual real stunt training, like jumping off this building. There was a dude in Geelong who just had access to this shed, and we'd just go into this shed on Saturday mornings and just jump off things and fight one another. And sometimes we'd get some cool gear like an air ram, which is this thing. It's sort of flat like this and it goes up like that, but it has a hydraulic sort of thing in it, so it just flings really, really hard, and you just catapult yourself like meters up in the air. So we just play around with stuff like that. So I trained for about 1.5 years before I was ready, and then I got all my stuff signed off on. I also got a motorcycle license. That was the last bit, the last little piece of the puzzle that was missing. You just need any vehicle license. So motorcycle was cooler, so I got motorcycle instead of car. And then pretty much when I got my stunt grading, I just kind of started working. It wasn't that hard to get into it. The first job I had, oh, here's another photo dump. Here you go. You can look at stunt photos. So this is my first job. Mitsubishi Murder Mysteries, season 1, episode 9. And the storyline was there's these young girls, like sort of 15-year-old girls in this sort of finishing school kind of vibe. And one of them is murdered. It was the mayor. The mayor did it. She was pregnant with his secret child, and he murdered her so that no one found out. But they needed a 15-year-old girl to be the murder victim. And they were like, well, it'd be nice to get a stunt performer, but there are no 15-year-old stunt performers. There's no female stunt performers that look like a 15-year-old. We're just going to have to get a child and drown her in Port Phillip Bay. But then my stunt trainer was the assistant stunt coordinator on that. And he was like, wait, I know this person. She's just about to get her grading. I think she'd be perfect. So I was cast in that role, and it actually was an acting role, not a stunt role, which was pretty cool. But they wanted a stunt performer because there was I drowned face down in the ocean, and I had to just lie face down in Port Phillip Bay in the middle of winter, in the middle of the night for like 40 seconds. It sucked. And there was also a bit of a fight, this girl pushes her, she whacks her head, and so there was that too. It was kind of funny because the other actors on it were actually all 15, and there was one point where they were all like, oh, how much school are you missing for this? Oh, I'm missing a week. How about you? I'm like, I'm 23. And yeah, even 15-year-olds couldn't tell that I was not one of them. And yeah, so that was my first job, and then just sort of, the momentum kind of just carries you. With stunts, you don't have to hustle anywhere near as hard as acting. It's a very, very, very small community. There are not many women. I am the smallest woman. So it'd just sort of be like, we need a tiny lady, and I'd get a call. And it was just sort of trucked along on its own. So here's some cool, that one's great. I was in full body prosthetics, head to toe. That's just my motorbike. That was just lunchtime. We were just being silly. But that one, that took 6 hours to get into those prosthetics. It was wild. And I couldn't eat properly because my mouth was stuck shut, and there was one of my eyeballs was covered. That movie's great though. You should watch that. That was Bad Behavior. Did a full body burn on that. That was really cool. That was just training. This one you can't actually see, but I'm riding a skateboard off a diving board, and the skateboard's on fire. You can't really see, but that's what's happening. That was fun. That was just sort of like some stunts. It's like you can't train for that. It's not that hard. You just ride the skateboard off, and then gravity does the thing. That's Lucy Hale. I was doubling her in a big film in Fiji. That's the thing that we did during lockdown. Did you ever see those things? I don't know how big they were outside the stunt community, but like Hollywood actors and stuff would do them, or Hollywood stunt performers, where one person would punch a camera, and then the next person would react to it and then go and punch it. And then, does that make sense? Kind of. And so when you watch the video, it looks like someone punches someone and whatever. And so the Australian stunt community did it, and they would just send you the last person's video, and you had to react to that and do it. And so my video, someone threw a book at me, so I just fell off the couch, and then I threw my copy in their face. That's from something called Lambs of God. That was another thing where I had to drown in a pond. That was in the Blue Mountains in the middle of winter, so people love freezing me. I just fell off the staircase. That one was that was silly. I just had to be on the back of a motorbike with a bassoon that was falling off the boat. That was being exploded by an explosion. Yeah, fun times. Don't do much of that anymore, mostly because I've just fallen off the radar because I'm here now doing this and I'm too busy to train or to hustle or to do anything. But every so often someone will call me and there'll be a thing. This is the next big formative experience of my life. In 2016, I just took 6 months off of life. I'd done a modeling job and just got paid just a whole bunch for it. And when the money came through, I was like, I don't know how to deal with this money. Never had money in my life. It was not like $1 bazillion, but it was 5 figures. And I was like, I've never had more than like $1,000 in my possession at one time. I literally don't know what to do. This might as well be infinity dollars. So I converted it into American dollars, and that made it feel like a more manageable sum. And I flew to America and bought a motorbike, and another photo dump. And I just rode it around for 6 months, kind of just like everywhere. I went through 31 states in the 6 months. I started in LA in the middle of summer, ended up in New York in the middle of winter. Dumb idea. Don't do it in that direction, especially not in a naked motorcycle. And I just learned a huge amount about myself. I just thought a lot. I was on the road for like hours and hours a day, and I was just thinking about the world and life. And I just met a lot of people, and I thought a lot about gender. I thought a lot about race. I thought a lot about the way that people are allowed to just fall through the cracks. And while I was there, Donald Trump got elected for the first time when I was in Montana. And that was a very, very interesting moment. I experienced the country changing overnight. The people changed. Americans, I think, there are Americans in the room. I'm just going to give you my opinion of Americans. Don't hate me. But I felt like Americans were a very, very hopeful people. And their land is built on this hope and this national identity. And then it felt like that just went overnight. And I'd meet people and they'd hear my accent and know that I wasn't American, and they would apologize to me. They'd be like, I think we've done something terrible. And I think they'll be like rolling out implications of that throughout the world. And it was very, very sad to watch that happen to this country full of wonderful people. One of the things that struck me the most about America is that people talk to you. Like in LA, I would just walk around the city and people would talk to me in the street and in bars and in cafes, and I would make friends just by being there. People there were so, so kind. Often I would basically every morning, once I left LA and I actually was on the road, this is my little setup, my tiny little tent, my tiny little bike. And my morning was I'd wake up, strike my campsite, get on my bike and drive to the nearest town and open my atlas out on the table while drinking coffee and just figure out a reasonable distance to ride that day, matching up as much green as I could. I tried to hit like every national park I could. And most days while I was doing that, some old dude would come and sit down at my table with me and be like, is that your bike out there? And it was like, it was laden like this. So people would be like, where are you going? Where have you come from? What are you doing? And I had this cool jacket. Is it on there? I don't know if it's on there. But I had this cool Triumph jacket with like a UK flag on the back. And so they'd think I was British and be like, are you from somewhere else? And they'd pay for my coffee, or they'd fill my bike up with fuel, or they'd just do something to like just pass me on to the next place and try to just propel me along my journey. And it was just life affirming, just meeting constantly wonderful people. Yeah, that's when I was hitchhiking in Alaska. I made a little snowman to hold my sign because it was so cold that my fingers got cold, and the lady came and gave me an apple. I was inside a glacier, Mendenhall Glacier near Juneau. This is one of the best things I've ever done in my life. This is one of the things I'm the most proud of. That was during the, if anyone's watching on Zoom, you can't see what I'm pointing at. Sorry, you're missing out on some nuances of this. So the North Dakota Access Pipeline protest was on while I was in America, while I was nearby. And that was when they were building a pipeline through Indigenous land. It sucked, really, really sucked. They were calling in military police from around the country to come and stop people from protesting. It was an absolutely messed up situation. And I was nearby. So I called my friend who was the one who picked me up hitchhiking there. He was meant to be driving to the next town, but I convinced him to drive me to the Arctic Circle, which took 8 days. So we were firm friends by then. So I called him and I was like, I'm going to North Dakota. Do you want to come to this protest? And he was like, all right. So he flew in and we were like, let's take something with us. I don't want to just turn up to this protest and be using their resources and eating food and going to the toilet where there's not really proper toilets and whatever. Let's try to do something and take it with us. So we met this dude. His name was Sonny, and he was like a solar electrician, which appealed to me enormously. But over 3 days, we built this portable solar generator. So that's powerful enough that it could generate enough power to run a school or a small hospital for like about probably like 30 years if it's looked after well. So we built it. I did not design it. I don't know anything about electricianing, but Sonny did all of that. Andy, the guy who picked me up hitchhiking, he financed it, and I made it beautiful. I built most of it, got the tools and did the drilling, and I did the painting, and we took it up there and we signed it over to the Sioux tribe, and we were like, this is yours now. This is what it can do. We've paid the rego and stuff on it. It's yours. And yeah, so that's what we did. And I was very happy about being able to do that for them. And hopefully it's still out there sometime. Okay, after America, plot twist. You all already know this, but it really took everyone else by surprise. So one day I was in a bar with my mate, swiping on my Tinder. I had girls and boys turned on because I was like, I'm not into girls, but like, I just want to look at their profiles to see what they look like. And my friend saw this woman and he was like, holy moly, we're swiping right on her. And I was like, okay, let's. And we did. And we started talking and we started dating. And I was like, oh, I'm gay. There's more to the story than that, but I'm running out of time. And that's the long and short of it. That's the important thing. So figured out I was gay pretty late in life. Fell in love with this woman. We are not together anymore. She absolutely destroyed my heart in a way that can only happen when it's a woman. God damn it, boys cannot do that to you. But that was fun and nice, and glad we got through that without too much angst. I think figuring this stuff out as an adult, when you have a pretty strong sense of self and whatever, it's actually great. It wasn't bad. Like, I wasted a whole bunch of time kissing boys, but I reckon we've done all right. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in so we all knew that story. COVID sucked so much. So not long before COVID, I did this film. It was a big Chinese film. It was the biggest ever Chinese film that had been done in Australia. It was massive because China had decided that they wanted to start making big action movies, like Hollywood big action movies. And they didn't have the infrastructure or the people or the stuff. So they were going to America and they were going to Australia and different places and just doing stuff. So this was going to be very, very, very big for the Australian stunt industry. So they brought over this massive movie. A whole heap of us were on it. It was massive. It was awesome. And we were like, oh, this is what's happening next for us. So I started learning Chinese because I was like, if you're the one stunt performer who can speak a bit of Chinese, you're ahead of the 8 ball. And that was going to be awesome. And then COVID happened. So as you might have noticed, we are not now a Chinese movie powerhouse here. So yeah, I was just full of hope and excitement about the future of everything. And then COVID happened, the industry shut down. My future looked like it may not happen anymore. And I just got very, very, very depressed. I was also dating somebody. She's not in any of these pictures because I'm about to tell you a bunch of crappy stuff about her, but she kind of just sucked too. It was an abusive relationship. It was not good. And I was kind of trapped with her, trapped in this situation. That's me playing guitar to a dog. That is me attending my brother's wedding via Zoom on a ridgeback, which was extremely adorable, but very, very depressing. My brother got stationed to America, so he had to, like, the wedding had to really just happen in this little window, and he was devastated when the lockdown in Melbourne happened because he knew I couldn't come, and it sucked and will be one of the greatest disappointments of my life, but it's fine. You know, they're actually, I just found out on the weekend, they are on their 3rd baby right now. So, you know, it's pretty great. But yeah, I left COVID feeling sad and insecure and just feeling crap about myself. And it's really the only time in my life where I've just felt like really low self-esteem, and I didn't know what to do anymore. Broke up with that terrible person. That's not Holly, by the way. If any of you have met my partner, this is not her. She's great. So I was like, I need something to do. I desperately need something to do. Don't know if the acting thing is going to keep happening, but I just need a little bit of a bridging thing while I'm figuring out what to do. I need to show up somewhere. I need to have something expected of me. I'm going to just go back to university. I'm going to do some science. Don't care what kind of science. So to do it at a graduate level, and to do it at Melbourne, because I like Melbourne because it's pretty and I could ride my bike here, the psychology was it. So I was like, okay, whatever, I'll do psychology. Maybe I'll transition into like a real science later. And so it was a bit of a slow start because I had COVID as it started. So I did summer semester from there, which was perfectly pleasant. And then because I was at this massive, big, awesome uni, I was like, I'm going to join a club. I'm going to have this proper uni experience. So I joined the cheerleading club. That was great. That was us at the championships in my first year. So we were actually the level 1-2 all girl no tumble state champions that year. And that's us all playing soccer. That brings us up to the moment, really. So yeah, did my graduate diploma. I was like, that was fun. I'm just going to apply for honours. I don't need an honours degree. I'm just going to apply for honours and just see what happens. I got into honours and I was like, okay, whatever, fine. Totally cooked my application and didn't get to choose my project. And I was like, this is going to suck. I'm going to be just allocated to some random project. I'm not going to care about it. This is so disappointing. I've just ruined my life. And I got put on Charles Kemp's project.
Your life has been ruined.
The best thing that possibly could have happened. And Charles told me later that he'd been really iffy about even putting that project forward because it seemed to, like, the modeling was so tricky that maybe it was inappropriate for an honours project. And me, a little stunt performer, never modeled a day in my life before, like a few months before that. I was just like, hell yes, I love this. That year was a pretty terrible year. A lot of bad things happened that year. It doesn't matter what, but I was so dedicated to my project because of that. I was like, all I want to do is stare at R and model. It all makes sense when I can just model something. And so we're basically at the end. I put this slide because I hoped that maybe once I got to here, I would think of what the moral of the story is and have some sort of thing to wrap it all together. I don't. But here's a bunch of pictures of me just being gloriously happy throughout my life. And I'm like, I think that everything in my life had to happen the way it did and in the order that it did, because right now I'm really, really happy. And I think I've lived an extremely good life. And I think that there's a lot more for me in the future. And I don't know what it'll be. And that's what's so exciting. I didn't think I'd be here. I didn't think I'd be doing a cognitive science PhD where I get to go to Queensland and record birds. Like when I was walking around Currumbin Sanctuary's secret facility the other day by myself, they're just now like, yeah, you can just go hang out with the birds. I was like, this is wild. Like that little 10-year-old version of Zoe going around Australia never would have dreamed this in her wildest dreams. And here I am. And I guess that's basically it. I had to put hockey in because I'm obsessed with hockey and I haven't spoken about it once in the last hour, which is like unheard of for me. And there's a bunch of birds. That's great. How good is that fashion? I had to put in that picture because the fashion is so excellent. My mum made me and my sister those outfits for the school disco and they are glorious. And I reckon that's it. That's the end. I've left 7 minutes. I had no idea how long this would go for, but 7 minutes for questions. Yeah.
So I reckon there is a theme.
Oh yeah, cool. What is it?
Yes, and. Which seems to me like how you've lived your life and gotten into academia and everything. I was wondering, sort of related to, I guess, is do you see parallels in sort of academia and how either you traverse it or how it is and some of the other things you've been in, or non-parallels? Like if you had to sort of compare and contrast, what is it like being in academia versus in acting or stunt performing? Because the parallels jumped out at me, but I don't know if, yeah, I'm hallucinating, right? Yeah.
No, I have been asked this before by people who are sort of like, you were so creative before and science is the opposite to creative. So how does that work? But the first time I was asked that, it really confused me because I was like, I don't know how other people do science, but it feels very creative to me. And I think for me, this will sound wanky, but actors are wanky people. But for me, the thing about acting is that you're trying to uncover and display something about the truth of the world and display it to people in a way that maybe they can then understand the truth about themselves or about the world or something. And the motivation to do science is the exact same thing. It's just a different way of uncovering truth and showing it to people. But I'm motivated by that exact same thing. And so to me, it feels like two sides of the same coin. Like one of them, you're discovering the thing, and one of them, you're creating it. But I think it's doing the same thing in the world, really. Or I think that my approach to it is that's what I want to do in the world. Does that answer your question? Cool. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you find that you use your skills from your previous career now?
I mean, maybe not skills per se. Like I've rarely been called upon to set myself on fire in the CHDH, but I would. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but like I think that's maybe not my skills per se, but just my general way of thinking and creativity, and I guess the way that I sort of just generally approach things is like not ever thinking that maybe something is too hard for me or not appropriate for me. That's probably something that I would bring into science, although I have realized for the first time in my life, I feel completely out of my depth sometimes here. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I'm not smart enough for this, but like, I'm stuck in it now. So I'm going to have to figure out how to be. I often have meltdowns in our supervisor meetings where I'm like, I don't know why I've told people I can do this because I can't. And now I need to. I think I've generally done that throughout my life, but never tried to do something this hard, and now I have, and I've realized I can't just do everything really easily. But hopefully,
Very common feeling.
great. I'm glad. I have no doubts that I'll get through it, but also it's terrifying.
So I read this like interesting, I guess, pop sciencey book a while back called Range by David Epstein, and like the basic premise is that for like complex kind of careers or like problem solving such as science and all this sort of thing, like you particularly need a windy path to get there. That's a benefit, not like a cost. And you know, there are some skills or domains, you know, playing tennis or something like that, if you train at that from like, you know, super young age and focus on that, like maybe that's the best way to get there. But you know, the premise in this book is that in all of these more complex domains, including science or, you know, art or like other sorts of things, you need to have these really diverse experiences to draw upon to like, you know, look at these problems in new ways and that sort of thing. Like, does that at all resonate with? Because clearly you've had a very windy journey.
I think that probably anybody with the right skill set could do the project that I'm doing, but I don't think they would. And I think that that's kind of something that's cool about my project. It feels like me, and it feels like my heart will be in it, even though it's science and it's not meant to have the scientist in it. But I'm like, I don't know how to create things that don't have me in them. And so this hopefully it won't look like it does at the end, but I think the thing that will actually make it happen and keep it happening throughout the process of my PhD is exactly what you said, like picking out all the little bits of my life that are somehow relevant to this and just throwing them all at the problem and hoping.
And a little secondary, I was expecting more bird facts. Have any gone up of?
Well, I was like, I don't know how long this slide deck will take to go through because I finished it this morning. But there's always an enormous amount of bird facts in my back pocket. I was like, if this takes 10 minutes to get through that 50 minutes of bird facts, I'm ready. I'm ready for it. They'll come out at lunch.
I think on that note, let's thank Zoe one more time.